Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Saba Show. We're back for the round 23 predictions. This is my second time recording it. Hopefully it all goes well. Anyway, we're just going to dive right in, and I'm doing it after the teams have been announced for once. We have the first big matchup for the week in what will decide who's in the top four. The Bulldogs are taking on the Power. As you can see with the ins, we have Rourke Smith, and for the Power we have Stevie Motlop coming back in for what seems like his first game in months, and Trent McKenzie out is Fantasia again, Cleary and Mays for the Power. This matchup is going to be very interesting. The Dogs are not in a good patch of form based on the last month, lost to Hawthorn last week and the Bombers the week before. The Power basically absolutely mauled the Carlton Football Club last weekend, and look, I think they're going to have a very strong performance this week. The Bulldogs need their midfield to start firing again. They're going to need to kick a few more goals this week because last week they were lacking the firepower that they've had in the past. Josh Bruce, obviously, that is out is a problem, and they've got to rectify the problem somehow. It looks like Stephen Martin is not back in this week, so they can't shuffle Tim English into the forward line, where he had a lot of good form earlier on in the season. Look, based on this, no Ugle-Hagan either. I think the Bulldogs are going to struggle to kick a winning score this week. The Power, they kicked 140 last week. Plenty of contributors. Look, Dixon doesn't show up against good football sides, but look, I think the Dogs may struggle a little dealing with Dixon. And that whole tall forward line, Laddams, Georgiades, Marshall, the list goes on for the Power. But yeah, I think the Bulldogs are going to have a lot of trouble containing the Power, and they're not going to be able to combat that with a winning score with the forward options they've got. So I'm going to say the Power win this one. West Coast have had to get rid of a couple of their players due to injury. A couple of really good players, as you can see, Shepherd, Petrocelli, McGovern, Kennedy, and Kelly all out for the Eagles. So this is shaping up as, what could be a disaster for the Eagles in what is a game that they need to win. They're bringing in Connor West, Harry Edwards, Jake Waterman, Jermaine Jones, and Josh Rotham. So, names that, aren't comparable to the ones going out. Very inexperienced lot there. And then Brisbane are unchanged. And so they should be with their impressive performance last week. They taught Collingwood a lesson, played very clinically. It's what you expect of a side that, is going to play finals this season. And, with a big win this week, they could be in the top four, barring the Bulldogs result goes their way. Look, I think Brisbane are going to win this one. I think it'll be a cakewalk. It could be very ugly for the Eagles, given all the players that they have out. It's always been a problem for them, injuries, and this is probably not the week you want it to happen. So, look, I think Brisbane are going to win this pretty convincingly. They did a number on Collingwood, and West Coast conceded 8 goals to the Dockers in the first quarter last week. So, I can see something very similar happening this week, especially without McGovern in the side and Shepherd in the side. I think they're going to be very vulnerable down back, and then up forward, where they're getting the scoring from. Darling and Allen need to perform, but I don't think they're going to be able to contribute in a big way. So Brisbane are going to win this one very convincingly. Carlton are playing the GWS Giants at 7:40 on Saturday night, and this is going to be the final game for Eddie Betts in his 350th. Great player of the game, an entertainer, a showman, and loved by the AFL in general and its fans. They're bringing in Patrick Cripps and Fogarty this week. Murphy is outmanaged, but he's done. Paddy Dow omitted for the last game of the year. Interesting. And Samo as the medical sub. The Giants are not bringing Cornelio back in this week, but they do have Toby Green. Mumford is out, so Tom DeConning will not be pushed around in that matchup. And they've also brought in Kieran Briggs as the replacement for Mumford. Look, GWS are in a very hot patch of form. Taranto had a very good game last week, kicked 4 goals as the replacement for Toby Green. You would expect him to go back into the middle. this week, or maybe he'll play forward again based on his performance last week. This is shaping as a very, very tough clash for Carlton. I mean, they bring in Cripps this week, but their form is trash. They dished up a horrible performance last week against the Power to send Murphy off, and I don't think they're going to rectify their problems and send Eddie off in a winning way. GWS are just playing too good. You know, their fringe players are performing, something that, you know, Carlton is guilty of not having good fringe players that perform on a regular basis. And the Giants are, you know, lucky to have those players in at the right time performing. So, look, I think that they're going to perform once again. You know, they've beaten some good sides in the last couple of weeks. Geelong, and then, you know, the lesser likes of Richmond. But, yeah, I think GWS are going to win this one to cement their spot in the top 8. Geelong will play Melbourne on Saturday night, and this is probably what's shaping as the match of the round. Geelong are coming off some interesting form. You know, a couple of these sides at the top half of the table, like the Bulldogs and the Cats, haven't shown the best of form recently, and, you know, you want some good form going into finals, so this isn't ideal for the Cats, and they are coming up against a side that is not going to let them come back into form very easily, that being the Demons. They're bringing in Viney, May and McDonald this week, so 3 huge ins for the Ds, so they're not making the Cats' life any easier. They will be bringing in Gary Rowan, Grindmeyers and Tom Atkins this week. Higgins is out and Radically is out. Yeah, the Ds big ins though. You know, they're bringing in May, so they've got their formidable backline again. And the Cats are losing Radically, so I don't think he's been in the best of form if he's getting dropped. So it looks like May and Lever will have their hands full with Hawkins and Cameron this week. But look, I think the Ds, you know, they beat Adelaide without some of their good players. I mean, they're coming back in this week. But, you know, they dealt with the Crows. You know, they had a bit of a scare earlier on. The Crows were challenging them, and then they just stood up to the task. And Fritsch kicked their last 5 goals, ended with 7. You'd like to see another bag from him this week, or even in a finals game, you know. But look, they have been dealing with sides that aren't up to a high standard. We saw that with Gold Coast the other week. You know, they did an absolute number, treated them like they were merely a part of a training drill. The opponents in a training drill. So look, if the Cats aren't up to scratch, which they haven't been for the last few weeks, you know, lucky to get off the hook against the Saints. Started very slow. This could get very ugly. So look, I'm going to predict the Ds based on their very good form as of late. And, you know, the Cats not playing that well at the moment. So, yeah, Ds to win this one. The AFL website has the fixtures all over the place, so I'm a bit out of order, but we've got Richmond and Hawthorn playing at 1:35 on Saturday, I believe. But look, they are bringing in 9 players, Richmond, and the outs are ridiculous. Prestia, Lambert, Nankervis, Cochin, Edwards. Those are the big names, and they're bringing in a lot of inexperience. On the flip side, Hawthorn are bringing in O'Meara, Warple and Brewst. So 3 very good ins there, and look, Hawthorn's form has been really good. Last 5 games, I believe they've lost only 1. You know, in there is a draw with Melbourne. They beat the Dogs. They beat Brisbane. You know, these are top 4 sides. So they're playing some really good footy right now. And let's hope it translates over to the next season where, you know, they could be much higher up the ladder and, you know, going for a final spot. Yeah, Richmond, you know, were pretty much killed by GWS. They lost, you know, in every category. They didn't look great out there. You know, you find some silver linings out of this. Daniel Rioli's had a, you know, a good time in the back line. You know, really out of sorts in the forward line for a while there. And, you know, he's found form. But apart from that, there's not too much to salvage in the last, you know, 8-9 weeks. Basher Hawley's retired. David Asprey is retiring. So I think they'd be hoping that they can send those 2 out on a high. But in saying that, I think Hawthorn are very well shaped to win this one. They're bringing in some good players. Their midfield is going to outclass this Richmond one by a mile. Very inexperienced side, as we mentioned, that they're fielding. So I think Hawthorn, based on form and the level of confidence within each side, I think Hawthorn is the team to pick here. Sydney play Gold Coast, and Sydney are coming off a win against North Melbourne that wasn't convincing, but they still got the job done. And Gold Coast are coming off a loss against Essendon, and a pretty bad one too. Gold Coast have only beaten Carlton really in the last month, and Carlton are shit. So, yeah, say what you will. Sydney have lost a couple key players in Josh Kennedy and Nick Blakey, but they're bringing in some very good players. Jake Lloyd, Mills, and Buddy Franklin all coming into the side this week. And for Gold Coast, Jared Harbrow has not played a game in, I reckon, a year and a half. But he's coming in for his final match at AFL level. Let's see if they can pick up a win for him. I don't think so. Sydney, you know, they've been on a tear. I mean, even when they're not playing great, they're getting the job done. They had control for pretty much the whole game last week, and I expect them to do the same this week. Yeah, the Suns, this could be pretty ugly for them. Yeah, Swans to win this one easily at Marvel Stadium, which has been a home ground for them, if you want to say that. And we have extended teams for the 3 games on the weekend. Adelaide are playing North, and this is a Salad Dweller clash. Both sides, you know, 17th and 18th, I believe at this point. Adelaide, yeah, you know, they can't seem to get it done week in, week out. It's been a while since they've gotten like a quality win. Hawthorn was probably the last team they beat. And that looks pretty impressive now, given Hawthorn's form. North, you know, we've been saying this for like 10 weeks now, that they've been showing really good signs. You know, they couldn't get the job done against Sydney, but they show glimpses. It's like a common trait of theirs, week in, week out. Look, the Crows, yeah, not much to look forward to with them. They're introducing a debutant, I believe. They've axed a couple players in the last 2 weeks. They announced that they wouldn't be giving David McKay another contract. So there's another player out the door for the Crows, probably correlating with, you know, them going for a more youthful approach next season. But look, I think North are probably favourites in this clash, and I'm going to tip them. Yeah, they're just showing a bit more in competing with the better side. So I think they're going to deal with the Crows relatively well. They're going to shut the Crows fans up at the Adelaide Oval in what is going to be the last clash for the regular season. We're going backwards with the Sunday clashes. We have Essendon and Collingwood, you know, one of the great rivalries of the AFL. Essendon, look, they have put together some very good form. Jake Stringer, man of the match, and 3 Brownlow votes last week, you'd think. Collingwood, yeah, they just got humbled by Brisbane, couldn't cope with the pressure. And this is going to be a problem for them. I mean, Brody Myercheck is now out with suspension. And Trey Rusco was showing some good signs at halfback, reinvented halfback, like Daniel Rioli. Yeah, he's out too. But look, I think Collingwood are going to have a few problems. You know, we've seen some good stuff with, you know, De Goey going into the midfield and becoming fully fledged in that department. But yeah, I did mention that Collingwood were overwhelmed by Brisbane and, you know, their relentless attacking game plan. And I think Essendon sort of match up similarly in their game plan as well. Very attacking side. Yeah, they trouble, you know, opposition defenses. And I think this game's going to be no exception. Essendon, if they win this game, they're in the 8, you know, with a couple other results going their way. And I give them, you know, a lot of credit for the season they've played. Very attacking, very entertaining brand of football. And look, I think they're going to deliver something similar that they have in recent weeks, which has given them wins in the past. And I think they will get another win this week. And even though it's not the last match of the round, this will be the last game of the regular season. I will be predicting it is St Kilda Fremantle playing at the weird time slot of 12:15 on a Sunday at Blunston Arena. Look, St Kilda last week coming off a loss against the Cats, and Fremantle coming off a great win against West Coast. For a moment, I thought that Fremantle were going to be unable to hold off West Coast because they looked very threatening later in the game, and you couldn't see Fremantle kicking too many more goals in that matchup. They kicked 8 in the first quarter, which was ultimately decisive. You know, I think it really got a lot of AFL fans surprised. This Fremantle Dockers side that were lacking forward dynamic for weeks and weeks. They kicked 8 goals in 1 quarter. And, you know, it was entertaining to watch in a derby as well. So on one of the biggest stages you can get, especially for Fremantle. But St Kilda, you know, they've sort of fizzled out in the last couple of weeks. You know, they were sort of thereabouts to have a crack for a top 8 spot, but then it just faded away. And look, I would have tipped St Kilda to win this clash, but Max King is out. I think he would have been a huge problem for Fremantle given how tall their backline is. I mean, Alex Pearce, Luke Ryan, you know, they're not that tall. Griffin Logue, they're all sort of like 193, 194 centimeters. And Maxi King is like an extra 10 centimeters on him. So he would have been a major problem if you just sat it on his head. But he's not there. So it's going to be interesting to see where the, you know, the forward output comes from. If Tim Membry has a big game, you know, one of the smalls, you know, has a ridiculous game, Jack Higgins. But look, Fremantle getting Brayshaw back in. They're losing Connor Blakely. But yeah, Andy Brayshaw in himself is a huge in for the Fremantle Dockers. The young players, you know, Brayshaw, Sarong and Shearer, they play very well on the big stage. You know, that Sarong goal late got me up standing and applauding because that goal was nuts. It was out of bounds, but, you know, it was an amazing goal nonetheless, and it was the sealer. So, you know, standing up in those high pressure situations, big moments, and when the game's on the line, you know, Sarong stood up in that scenario, and he's done that a couple of times this year. Richmond, and then last week against the Eagles, you know, in big games, and a win could see them in the 8. We don't know. It's going to come down to the wire, but I back Fremantle to win this clash. And that is all the predictions for the AFL Premiership season. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to smash a like. You know, if you want to see more sports videos, subscribe to the channel. That's about it, really. We will be doing some predictions for finals. I think it's going to be very, very exciting to see who makes up the top 8. It's going to come down to the wire. I think it's going to be very exciting this week, though. So anyway, we'll see you next week, or whenever. I don't know. But I will see you whenever that is. Peace out.